Your book is Toms River. Talk about why you chose this New Jersey town that most people outside New Jersey probably don't know about.
Well, for many years, I was the environmental reporter for Newsday, which is a large newspaper, circulates on Long Island in New York City. And on Long Island in particular, cancer patterns were a huge issue for our readers, and I was very interested in what they're interested in is what I'm interested in. And I thought it was quite fascinating to understand epidemiology, which is a complicated word for a very simple concept, which is patterns of cancer, patterns of disease, and trying to interpret those patterns. It's like a mystery story. So I wrote a lot about that on Long Island, especially about breast cancer, because that was such a huge issue. But I never really felt like I was getting to the bottom of it, that I was giving readers the kind of core understanding that they needed. Also because I felt like the really good science wasn't being done on Long Island. But it was being done in this town in New Jersey that I had heard about, Toms River. And I went down there and wrote a story, and I thought it was quite fascinating. I thought the people involved were amazing, including, but not limited to, the Gillicks, who your viewers just met, and listeners. And I thought, well, if I ever get a chance to really get the time to write a deep book about this fascinating subject of cancer epidemiology, I would look for a great narrative, and a great narrative where also great science was being done, and, well, that was Toms River. So when I went to New York, I finally had that chance. I went to NYU, I finally had that chance.
And you talked about, in the book, a chemical plant opening in Toms River in 1953. Could you tell us about what that plant was, how it was initially received in Toms River, and how the story unfolded from then? Sure.
So Toms River was really a town like any other town. It was a sleepy town down on the Jersey Shore. The economy was somewhat moribund. So when one of the big Swiss chemical companies, Ciba, started looking for a place to relocate their operations, they had gotten into some trouble, environmental trouble, pollution, and also in Cincinnati, Ohio. And previously in Basel, their original hometown. I sort of traced that historical...
In Switzerland?
In Switzerland, yeah. I traced that evolution over time. Basically, everywhere they went, they eventually became a most unwelcome neighbor. But when they came to Toms River, initially everyone was thrilled, because this was going to be, or it was ultimately, one of the largest dye manufacturing plants in the country, one of the larger ones in the world. And then it eventually expanded from dyes into plastics and other chemical products. And for many years, it was the most important employer in Ocean County. And they wasn't just that there were a lot of jobs, they were well-paying jobs, good blue-collar jobs. So in some ways, it was a real agent for social mobility, as long as people didn't think too hard about the long-term consequences. There was a lot of short-term thinking versus coming to grips with the long-term.
So Ciba manufactured dye. Could you talk about, which you do in the book, what are some of the dangers associated with dye manufacturing, which leads to these chemical pollutants, etc.?
Right. Well, it turns out that dyes are fascinating to look at for a couple of reasons. The first of which is that all of the big chemical companies that we know and love, starting with BASF, the largest chemical company in the world, still around, Ciba, Sandoz, so many GAF, so many of the big chemical companies started out by manufacturing dyes, which was really the first great product of the chemical age, starting in the 1850s. On the other hand, the thing about making dyes is that it generates a tremendous amount of hazardous waste. I mean, a lot. In Toms River, I was able to show that it actually generated much more waste than usable product. And all that product had to go somewhere. And traditionally, where they put it was either in the ground or into the water. And that's exactly what they did in Toms River, too.
I mean, this is truly an astounding story. And it's the residents that played a key role in uncovering what